I consider myself to be a soil scientist and agronomist. So today I'm trying to convince you that I believe, and hopefully you will after that also believe, that good agronomy is really at the center of good farming and therefore many of the other things we want to achieve. So the word agronomy actually comes from two ancient Greek words, agros, which stands for field, and nomos, which stands for law. So you could say it's about the laws of the field, or field laws. So in simple terms, it is about how to grow a crop successfully. And everyone who's tried that, and you may have tried this in your backyard garden at any point in time, will probably confirm that it's not easy. So you may get some things right, but you may get other things wrong and fail. So it requires actually great skill, knowledge, and also experience. It requires meshing many small steps together, and they need to add up to make a big difference. And you have to make, obviously, a lot of decisions, not just when you grow the crop, but actually already starting before you grow the crop. And you have to keep in mind that if you are a farmer whose livelihood, whose income depends on that, you can't really take too many risks in getting things wrong. So if you work in a temperate climate, for example, where you can only grow one crop a year, and your effective farming life as a farmer is maybe 40 or 50 years of action, you only have 40 or 50 shots to get it right. So every time you miss out on something, you have to wait until next year to get it right. So it's very complex, and it's nowadays largely about managing the complex interactions between genetics or genotype, the environment, and management options that we have to manage a field. So these are all at our disposal and requires a great amount of knowledge, integrating data and expertise to get these things right. From a crop physiological point of view, we have many ways to influence the performance of a crop. So there is, of course, the desire to get the most out of it in terms of the available climate, so the yield potential. That is defined by solar radiation, temperature, and the amount of available water. We want to get close as possible to this yield potential. And then we obviously have genetic options in terms of choosing the right variety, but we also have management options in terms of choosing the right planting date to exploit that. But then on the management side, on the agronomic management side, we have many, many, many ways of managing a crop, the soil, and the resources along with it. And it's generally thought that good agronomic management usually accounts for at least, often more, 50% of the productivity and efficiency increases that we can achieve in agricultural systems. So good agronomic practices are, of course, many to choose from, but they usually boil down to just sort of a few general principles. So the first one is you want to make sure that you choose a profitable and sustainable crop rotation that suits your means of production, your environment, your endowment. The second is you then need to choose the right kind of quality seed of a well-adapted variety. The third one is you need to plant that variety at the time, which leads us to the fourth one. You need to prepare your soil and also manage the crop residues from the previous crop in the right way to ensure the right kind of condition for that seed to grow very quickly and vigorously. The fifth one is that you need to maximize and capture the use of the available water, both from rainfall and irrigation sources. The sixth one is you want to have a balanced use of mineral fertilizers and any available organic nutrient sources at the right time, right amount, in the right way. The seventh one is that you would like to implement an integrated form of pest management that as much as possible draws on ecological principles, but also when needed, relies on crop protection measures of the chemical kind. And the last one is that you need to harvest at the right time, because if you harvest too late or too early, you may also lose out on the yield or other quality aspects of your food. So these are the principal components of good agronomy. And the challenge is now that all of those vary among individual fields, and often even in large fields, at least within an individual field. So you have to manage things in a very successive, precise manner to get it right. And I'll show you two examples, one at a single farm scale and one at a larger regional scale, Let's look at the first example for what I consider to be good agronomy. We have here a large estate in the eastern part of England, which has a very long history and also a long-term strategy of farming. So their principle has always been to focus on a good crop rotation. So 7 crops go in rotation over 7 years, and that actually goes back to principles established in the 19th century. What they're doing nowadays is applying new knowledge, new science, new precision farming technologies to implement this in the modern world on a large farm. They have a strong focus on soil health, so tillage and nutrient management and also nutrient recycling are done to meet the requirements of every individual crop, but they also have a very strong focus on getting then every other step in the production process right to the best quality to get the maximum performance out of this particular crop. So their result has been that their yields are not only rising in recent years, but they're also much higher than the national average or the regional average. And on top of that, they have been able to, in recent years, also implement significant environmental improvement features, for example, field margins with flowering plants to support pollinators. So that's a great example, in my view, for how good farming can be done. Our second example takes us to another part of the world. So southern Brazil is a big region for growing irrigated rice, 1 million hectares, with a relatively recent history of farming. But they also have had a significant increase in rice yields in recent years, and just in the last 10 to 15 years. And all of that, or to a large extent, was achieved essentially by implementing just 6 major agronomic practices for rice under those conditions in a better way. So farmers adopted principles to plant earlier to maximize the available yield potential. They reduced their seed rate, which resulted in larger, more stronger plants, more vigorous plants. They placed more emphasis on preventive weed management and pest management, including, for example, seed coating. They placed more emphasis on balanced nutrition with higher nitrogen use efficiency. There were changes in the way nutrients were being applied. And they also placed more emphasis on irrigating earlier instead of waiting longer, which often then resulted in yield losses due to slight stages of drought. And they also recycled the irrigation water for greater efficiency. These are all not high-tech solutions. They're essentially generic principles for good management that can be applied in a similar way in many other crops or other parts of the world. The key elements of success that we know from these and other studies is that one needs to keep things quite simple and focused on the key agronomic practices. These need to have a good scientific basis, but also then messages that can be easily communicated widely to farmers so that it enables the change in behavior and practices. That means people need to have access, wide access to trusted information sources, but they also then need to have location-specific technology solutions to do these kind of things. And public and private sector players need to work together on that. In my view, and I think also illustrated by these kind of experiences, is that the most important factor in this are people. To do this, one needs to have knowledgeable, motivated field agronomists and also focus on a farmer-to-farmer extension model, because farmers working together on measuring things in the field, observing things, testing things, recording their practices, analyzing the data, benchmarking against each other, and then making changes to improve, prefer that mode of learning. They don't like to be told what to do. They like to learn it among each other, but with some guidance also from knowledgeable people. And I think that is the way to change practices, particularly in a complex situation like growing a crop. There are tools that we can nowadays use, and we hope that they are particularly useful to bring agronomy to scale. It's relatively easy to do this with a few hundred farmers, but we need to think about how do we reach millions of farmers, particularly smallholder farmers in developing countries, where there is often not so much access to professional agronomists or the same kind of quality information that we have available in high-income countries. So that requires multiple public and private sector extension pathways, but also the systematic use of new tools and information communication technology, particularly smartphones and the associated applications, can be very, very useful in that context. But I'd like to also state that they cannot replace humans as the primary carriers of knowledge. So to wrap this up, I firmly believe that the next green revolution actually has to be an agronomic revolution. And these agronomists that we need as drivers for this need to know a lot. They need to know about genetics, chemistry, climate, engineering, logistics, businesses, soils, crop ecology, and so on. So it's actually an exciting profession that has a huge importance. It's also an exciting thing to do for young people, but we have too few of them. So if you don't know what to do in your life, if you're looking for a career in agriculture, become an agronomist and become part of the agronomic revolution.